did you not send this child to sweep the floor during the hours? Why after hours?
Alone.
And alone. Then the next thing, the caretaker took the child to the car. You didn't notice. These 3 men, the driver, the caretaker, the principal, both of them know something. And another thing, why there was no blood? Why? Who cleaned this girl up?
So I'm gonna try and keep it together for this video, but I probably will not. I woke up to one of my videos going viral because it was a funny video. I always try to read all my comments, and throughout the comments, I kept seeing this, Justice for Cwecwe, and I was like, what is this? What is going on? So I searched it, and I did a deep dive, and I did some research, and I am not okay. First and foremost, I'm gonna say now before I go into this is I signed the petition. Please sign the petition. The link is in my bio and you can sign the petition for her. But beyond that, this world is so, sometimes things are so lovely and then so just as beautiful, they're the opposite. But you know what pisses me off more than anything is justice not being served. I cannot imagine, I can't even fathom, like, I have been drugged and raped, but I am a grown woman, and it doesn't mean it's okay. It just means that I've been through a lot of life, and I now have the mental capacity to be able to deal with and have been able to handle it. This little girl had her, like, innocence, like, so I don't know what is happening except for I saw that they like deregistered Bergview College. I think it goes beyond that. I don't understand. If anybody goes to Bergview College, like, why are there not marches happening? Why is there not like a march happening at the college? I can't find the principal's name anywhere. I just keep seeing principal. Who is this man? What's his name? Why has he not been like plastered all over the internet? I woke up to messages in my DMs from a girl in Los Angeles that had an encounter with the same guy that drugged and raped me in 2020. And I've had multiple girls reach out to me and come forward about that. And the parallel of me trying to deal with that, trying to get information, get her to send any evidence so that I can reopen my case, then coming simultaneously online to see this other situation that's happening here in South Africa with this little baby girl. And I'm like, I'm this family who hasn't had justice since October. The case wasn't even October. The school's been open since then. Why is the school not shut down? Like, it's not even, I'm so sorry, this is not helpful. I'm trying to be helpful. But I think we all probably feel a mutual rage, like a mutual blood boiling rage about it. And this principal, if his hands are clean, why won't he do a DNA test? That tells me everything you need to know. I don't know why, look, I'm not suggesting any type of street justice. Why can't I find his information anywhere? His name? Why is he being protected? Abso-fucking-lutely not. I pray that this family, that this baby girl gets the healing that she needs. That's gonna take her it's gonna be a lifelong journey for her, by the way. And I know that anybody that has been through something similar understands. But we need to do better, like, as people, like, all over. It's just the fact that I'm dealing with something back in Los Angeles. I know I'm about to go back to LA, and I'm about to have to fucking go sit in a police station and talk to fucking cops that don't care about a case where there's a man that's still going around preying on, like, young and naive girls. And then it's like this weird, like, parallel, and even though it's so dramatically different in the same, it like we need to do better. How can you be so sick in the mind as, like, a person? No, you sicko rapists. You need to be fucking, like, pulled from society and all thrown into some disgusting little place all by yourselves together so you can eat each other alive and fucking, I don't know, literally, like, let us live in a safe environment. What the fuck? No child. I'm sorry, I'm bouncing back and forth from these two stories, but, like, no child should not be safe at school. I don't know. Anyway, sign the petition. There's so much more I could say on this, but I pray this mom gets her justice and her little girl.
Dressed like that? Have you heard of male teachers grooming young girls? Does sending your daughter out in this mini skirt to school not make her the prime victim for these horrors?
So let me get this straight. Grown women like Katlego are out here losing their minds because teenage girls are wearing short skirts. According to her, the real threat to society isn't men who assault little girls. It's girls who wear mini skirts and dance on TikTok. It gets worse. She preaches about modesty.
Dress modestly.
As if it's some magical shield that will protect your child from being assaulted. Here's a newsflash for you, Katlego. Girls in long skirts get raped too. No man ever stopped being a predator because the woman wore a longer skirt. But millions of girls have learned to hate their own bodies because they were told that their dance moves and clothing were too provocative. Policing women's bodies doesn't stop predators. So what exactly are you protecting these little girls from? If your biggest concern is the length of a schoolgirl's skirt and not the predator in your community, you are not protecting girls. Katlego wants women to feel ashamed of their own bodies from a young age.
I was so happy to see that little girl feel ashamed to even look at the boy doing that.
And let's not ignore the real message that Katlego is sending. She's teaching girls to police themselves by claiming that certain clothes invite harassment. Katlego is doing exactly what rape culture demands, making women responsible for men's actions. That's what women like Katlego are saying when they panic over short skirts and crop tops. You're giving abusers multiple excuses to rely on to justify why they targeted a particular victim. It's crazy to me how obsessed you are with the way teenage girls dress. Notice how nobody is telling boys to control themselves. You just focus on telling girls to cover up. Girls don't owe anyone modesty. They deserve to exist without fear or shame. Let them wear their miniskirts. They'll wear whatever makes them happy, and you can't stop them. If their freedom offends you, then that's your problem, not ours.
I wholeheartedly believe that there's a link between the high consumption of pornography in South Africa and the high volume of rape cases that are reported on a daily basis, with the first reason being that a lot of rape cases in South Africa resemble a lot of pornographic storylines and pornographic plots. Right? And because a lot of pornography that is consumed in South Africa is pornography that glorifies sexual brutality towards women. Before I even continue with this discussion, it's important to note that South Africa ranks among the top 20 countries in the entire world that consumes the most pornography, with most of this pornography being consumed by men. And I think men make up 90% or close to 90% of pornographic consumers in this country. Most of them access this pornography during working hours between 9 to 5. Traditionally, a lot of them used work devices and work networks to consume this material, but a lot of efforts have been taken by companies and educational institutions alike to prevent that material from being accessed. Obviously, there are privacy concerns, there are safety concerns, and I know for one, I went to a high school that explicitly said that the reason why they block it is so that we do not have access to sexually suggestive material. I mean, they didn't even let us have access to TikTok because they believe that a lot of the thirst trap content that we see is a way to soft launch fully nude content, and it's a gateway into having a pornographic addiction. And it's also important to note that there's an increase of people who use TikTok to promote OnlyFans. And because of accessibility, convenience, and a lot of other walls, the number of people who consume pornography in this country using mobile devices has gone up to 81%, right? I swear that was the last statistical, technical portion of this conversation. Let's continue. So what triggered my thoughts is a screenshot I saw from Manila, the creator, here on my FYP last night. And in the screenshot he shared, an elderly man decided to share his 2 cents in Naira in relation to the case with baby Cwecwe. And he said that he believes that this little girl, who unfortunately had her youth, her spark, taken away from her at such an early age, enjoyed being raped. Yeah, he explicitly said she enjoyed being raped. And it made me realize that a lot of rape apologists and men who are rapists in this country equate rape to being sex that you didn't enjoy. I'm going to say that again. A lot of rapists in this country, a lot of rape apologists in this country equate rape to being sex that you didn't enjoy. And they equate outing your rapist as simply you pointing fingers at a person you're too embarrassed to admit that you had sex with. That's the first thing I want to say. Also, if you have taken the time to listen to how Cwecwe's mother described the state of her daughter's body, which led to them going to the doctor to verify whether or not she was sexually assaulted, the way her mother describes the state of her front and back, the swelling, the lining of the anus, you will also realize that this wasn't just a tale of simple penetration without consent. It was brutality. But unfortunately, a lot of men think that brutality and how much they can hurt or damage a woman's body is a marker of how good they can give sex. Which leads me to my next point about women being willing participants of sex. You know, my own followers schooled me on my male privilege and how it sometimes blinds me from seeing certain things, because we were talking about how, you know, the popular saying, the best way to get over a man is to get under a new one. And you've also seen that screenshot of Chimamanda saying the only people who are benefiting are men. And then I was also on that wave for a long time. And then my followers like, but babe, the most crucial thing you're missing is the fact that women can be willing participants of sex, whether it's consensual, casual, committed, it's a fling, it has emotion, women can be willing participants of sex. And that's when I realized that men have literally been programmed to crave women's anonymity and invisibility during the act, that, I don't know, even in rape cases, men sometimes see women as being absent. The reason why they don't see women as victims of rape is because even during their own rapes, they are not active participants. They are not there. They do not exist. You know, I'm reading a book by Desmond Gross, right? It's Desmond Goss, not Gross. I'm confusing him with an author we studied for anthropology last year, and the book is titled Big Black Beasts, Race and Masculinities in Gay Pornography. And I can't remember the exact wording, but he was discussing the misogyny and the social and political aspects of bukkake. For those of you who do not know what that is, it's essentially when a group of men ejaculate on one singular woman's face. And the specific scene he described was this lady who is a news reporter who was sitting by her desk, and each time she discusses a different segment of the news in this pornographic film, a different man comes in to ejaculate on her face, right? She is working, and all of this is happening while she's talking to the camera. And he speaks about how a lot of the time, in relation to what I just said, that that is the most misogynistic thing you can do. That the fact that this woman has no reaction to you ejaculating to her face, the fact that she doesn't stop working, the fact that it's something, it's not even that she's allowing it to simply happen to her. This isn't just about men doing sex to women or not with women. She doesn't exist in the act. In fact, he called it men using women as vessels to eject their masculinity and leave. It's almost as if they ejaculating on a desk, on an inanimate object. It's like women are not there. And obviously the terms are a bit loose, because obviously the whole premise of being raped is you not consenting to the act being done to you, right? That is the premise of it. But even when you haven't consented to it and it's being done to you, they still don't think they're doing it to you. You don't exist. And it's like, and it's like the most bizarre thing I've had to realize. It's also why even when we consider whose story, whose version of the story matters most, the victim or the perpetrator, the reason why people are so quick to also believe the perpetrator, as I said, if the victim doesn't exist and the victim was not present during the crime that was committed to them, then they do not get to speak. Let's hear from the side of the person who was present. Almost as if he was raping a desk, raping a cupboard, raping a bottle of perfume. Are you guys walking with me here? Which leads me to my next point about a lot of pornography resembling rape cases, because that's what most of you are here for. That's the very first thing I said. And I think the most interesting part about pornography and the current state it's in is that at first it dabbled, and then it was flying too close to the sun. And now it fully embraces the fact that a lot of their selling points are worked around pedophilia, are worked around rape, and bringing those fantasies to life through a screen. But I think that it lives beyond the screen, because you guys go and do it in real life. When you think of the most basic porn concepts, think of how deeply disturbing they are and how you've never bothered to interrogate how disturbing they are, right? When you think about it, the most common ones, let's start with the most basic one: stepdaughter, stepfather, or father-daughter's friend, father and daughter, uncle and niece, right? Guys, there's absolutely nothing normal about people who fantasize about having sex with their own daughters or their daughter's friends. There's absolutely nothing normal about that, right? And porn makes it seem like this is a kink, it's a normal fetish to have. There's absolutely nothing normal about you putting yourself in a position to be in bed with a child, especially a child who's related to you in some capacity, or a child that you're entrusted with the guardianship. Because when your daughter's friend comes to your house, when your niece comes to your house, you become their guardian, not their potential sexual partner, okay? And think of how many children in South Africa are raped by their uncles. Think about it for 2 seconds. How many children in South Africa, how many girl children in South Africa get raped when they go visit and do sleepovers at their friends' houses by their friends' fathers? How many of them go over to sleepovers and then their friends' older brothers, older cousins, male cousins rape them? I mean, not so long ago we read a case where a South African man killed his own brother because he raped his daughter. Not so long ago, right? Think about that. And now let's move on to the next thing. Think of how many pornographic storylines kind of like glorify service providers having sexual relations with the people they're delivering the services to. And the one example I love to use is the Uber Eats delivery guy type of situation, where a delivery man comes to your door, comes to your gate, asks for a glass of water, asks to use your bathroom, or finds a reason to come into your house, right? And then once you give them the thing that they need help with, they proceed to have sex in the pornographic film. Now think of how many cases in this country where a delivery man raped a woman, right? Where a delivery man literally forced himself into the house of a woman, raped her. Delivery of any kind. Think of how many cases. Think of how many people knock on elderly women's doors in the township, asking for a glass of water, asking to use the bathroom, and then rape them. Think of how many of those people do that. Think about it carefully. I mean, we read so many cases of elderly South African women in their 80s even, a young man, a neighbor down the road, or a man who just found a reason to get into this elderly woman's house. Or said, I'm hungry, said, and then proceeds to rape her. Or women, or young men who break into the house of elderly people to do nothing but rape them. Not just to rape them. And now this last example I'm going to give is the one that resembles Cwecwe's case in, like, I don't know, in the best way possible. How many pornographic scripts kind of like romanticize people in education, people in sport, having sex with children? Oh, me and my male netball coach, he asked me to help pack up the equipment, and then in the change room, in the storeroom, him and I proceeded to have sex. Oh, I went for extra English lessons, and then once the other students left, he gave me a lesson on how to finger me. He put his fingers and hands under my gym dress, and then we had sex. How many pornographic films follow that plot line? How many of them, this is even worse, where it's aftercare and then a male aftercare worker is left with one girl child alone, and then they proceed to have sex? And guys, I'm going to say this. A lot of these porn houses are definitely using underage girls for these films. These girls don't just look young. A lot of them are underage. A lot of them are normalizing people in positions of power, authority, guardianship, having sexual relations with these children that they're supposed to take care of. And am I surprised that it's translating into real life where people genuinely do not see them having sex with... They're not having sex with children, they're raping these children. Where people think that raping children that they're supposed to take care of is sex and that it's a normal fantasy to have. I literally remember another Facebook post from last year where, and I think I talk about this in my videos all the time, where this very little girl was wearing traditional Zulu attire. She does not look older than the age of 3. And this elderly man commented on the post and said that, yo, ngamnyoba abered avuvuge. Like, in the same way Cwecwe's mother described what had happened to her daughter and the state of her body, this man described the same thing and his desire to do it onto a girl child. And it's also because in pornography, from what I've observed, is that pornography glorifies literal, like, close to mutilation. Like, it literally, the next thing they're gonna do is like literally put mutilation on display and think it's sexy. They glorify that, the whole, oh my gosh, I left her wounded, I left her whole gaping, I left her vagina. This is gonna be the very last thing I say. If allegedly the caretaker and the transport driver were tested and cleared, and the only DNA sample that's missing is from the alleged principal, because the main concern is finding the perpetrator, putting a crime to a name and a face. If the principal declined the DNA testing, were the 2 black men also given the opportunity to decline? On what grounds can you decline DNA testing? What makes him above DNA testing? What makes him above police cooperation? Is it because he's white? I mean, if the authorities were granted a search warrant to search my apartment, my house, whatever it is, in connection to a crime, could I simply look at them when I get to the door and say, you know, I don't feel like it, so no? And him expelling this little girl out of fear of bad publicity, which again will tie into what I have to say about perversion and pornography is that, have you also noticed that in these pornographic storylines where these older men brutalize these little girls, it's always as a punishment, and the repercussions of the sexual act is always more punishment? And also, are you guys not concerned with the cases that we're seeing of the increase of people in possession of child pornography, in the increase of people who are specifically assaulting children? And are you also not concerned with how many of them are
that child would never be the same again?
When and where will the girl child ever be safe in South Africa?
Cwecwe has been harmed.
When she got violated both in the front and in the back.
It looks with decade when he goes.
Isono Cwecwe is being a girl
who's just 7 years old, was violated.
Her childhood has been fast forwarded.
My heart is so heavy.
Isibuleli kusasa lengane le. Lengane sizoba netrauma impilo yayo yonke ukuthi yanukubezwe esikoleni.
Wena nabanye abantwana who have gone through what you've gone through.
And what do you mean it was school as normal the next day when something of this magnitude happened?
How do we help the situation?
All I want is Bekwi justice for mntana wami.
If we stand together, our voices will be heard.
We will be their voices.
And I'm adding my voice. Justice for Cwecwe.
Justice for Cwecwe.
Justice for Cwecwe. Justice for Cwecwe.
Justice for Cwecwe.
And justice to Cwecwe.
Justice for Cwecwe.
Justice for Cwecwe.
Justice for Cwecwe.
Because that little girl deserves justice.
I pray justice is so good.
Justice for Cwecwe.
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 Cwecwe.
Justice for Cwecwe.